And tonight in a Hannity exclusive, I will be joined by former Massachusetts governor, maybe soon to be president, Mitt Romney. And in a moment, I'll ask him to respond to President Obama spiking the football over Osama bin Laden's death and much more. But first, they were once political rivals, but now former presidential candidate Rick Santorum has thrown his support behind Governor Romney. In an email to supporters, the former Pennsylvania senator said that this is one of the most critical elections in our lifetime. And I personally couldn't agree more. Joining me now to respond to this and much more, Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney. All right, so you've been through a very hard, long, hard-fought, difficult process. You have emerged the winner. How does it feel?
Well, it's a good start. We got a long way to go. The first chapter of the process seems to be over, and we're coming together. The various candidates who battled each other have all decided that we're going to work together to make sure that we get the White House back into hands that know what it takes to get this economy going again and to return to the kind of principles and values that made us the nation we are. So it feels good. Got a long way to go, obviously. 6 months before the general election. A lot can happen in that amount of time.
A lot can happen, and that time, on the other hand, can go very quickly. There's been talk, rumblings that I've heard, Governor, that there might be some type of unity tour with you and all of the Republican candidates for the primary. Is that true? Have you discussed that with any of them?
You know, I haven't heard that rumor. I obviously welcome the support of people who we've been competing with. And
I was probably reading the New York Times.
But, you know, I see a number of the folks that were candidates for the nomination, and they've been supportive. We've done events together. And, of course, a number of the governors and senators who supported other people have endorsed me. And so I get a chance to see them pretty regularly, and it's pretty encouraging. It's
pretty clear now, I think, in many ways, what the Obama campaign has planned. They can't run on their record. I contend they can't run on their record. So they're gonna use a lot of class warfare. There's been a lot of rhetoric that has been thrown around. Let me show you, for example, this is how bad it's gotten, and it's very early. We still have 6 months to go. This is what the president said about the Republicans' plan. I just want you to hear it.
My plan says we're going to put teachers back in the classroom, construction workers back to work, rebuilding America, rebuilding our schools, tax cuts for small businesses, tax cuts for hiring veterans, tax cuts if you give your worker a raise. That's my plan. And then you got their plan, which is let's have dirtier air, dirtier water.
Do you want dirty air, Governor? I didn't hear you in the course of the campaign talk about dirty air and dirty water. Is that your plan?
Yeah. I think the only dirty air and dirty water is coming out of that clip that you just saw of the president's. Look, of course we want clean air and clean water. And I'm surprised to have him say that he wants tax cuts for small business. As a matter of fact, he's raising taxes on small business from 35% to 40%. That'll kill jobs. You know, I think people have learned that what he says and what he does are not necessarily the same thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are disappointed in his presidency and why they want to have someone who will actually get jobs in this country by making America a good place for job creators, a good place for workers, great schools. We know what it takes to create great schools. But frankly, some of the teachers' unions who are so adamantly supporting him have stood in the way of the kinds of reforms that will make our schools better. So I look forward to the debate because we're going to have to sort through and get to the bottom of this.
Let me just, and I guess my next question to you is, because the president can't run on, I think, the question. And I thought you had an interesting line in the last night that you won 5 states when you said, it's still about the economy and we're not stupid. Now, we're looking at $5 trillion in new Obama debt. Maybe at the end of his 4 years as president, it might be even as high as $6 trillion in new Obama debt. The very thing that he criticized George Bush for, called him unpatriotic, for $4 trillion in 8 years. But if we're going to deal with entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, those are going to be difficult decisions if we want to get to a balanced budget. So this is the ad that I think has gotten the most attention, and it seems like this is what you're going to have to deal with in the next 6 months, and that is that you don't care about the poor, kids with autism, the sick, the elderly, that, as a matter of fact, Paul Ryan and the Republicans want to throw grandma in a wheelchair over a cliff, and they even ran an ad. This is the ad that they ran. Poor grandma got thrown over the cliff. I would imagine that the next ad is going to be Governor Romney throwing grandma over the cliff. And this is a serious point, though. This is their campaign strategy. Governor, how are you going to deal with that?
Well, I think it's time for the truth. I think the American people recognize that we have important challenges and that we're going to have someone who will speak about those challenges in an honest and adult way. This kind of incendiary effort on the part of the Obama team, I just don't think will connect with the American people. It will fire up their base, but the people who will be deciding, those people who voted for President Obama last time, but are not certain they want to vote for him again because these last 4 years have been harder than they had expected, harder than they were told they would be. Those people, I think, are going to take a very long and careful look at each of us, hear what our plans are, and decide who has the credibility to actually get this economy going again. Look, we're now in the longest, slowest recovery in recorded history for this country. And it's because the president's policies are so tuned in to the old liberal approaches of the past. They didn't work back then. They're not working now. We need to get a new vision to get America working again and to restore the kind of economic vitality that'll make sure that our kids have the kind of future they deserve as well.
You're up 5-6 points in the latest Rasmussen poll. There are a number of polls where you're up by 1 point head-to-head. Obviously, swing states are going to be very, very important, Governor. The one poll that came out this week that got my attention the most, the Politico GW poll, among independents, you're up by 10 points. When you read these polls, we are 6 months out. What do you think of them at this point in time?
Well, it's very competitive at this stage. My guess is that we're going to be looking at these polls and all the polls as just suggesting that against an incumbent with $1 billion he's raising, with an extraordinary machine that'll be attacking me on a personal basis day by day, that we're the underdogs, that we're going to have to fight very, very hard to break through the clutter of the charges and the attacks and the efforts to dissuade people from looking at his record, to instead actually look at that record and to lay out what our vision is for getting this economy going, getting people back to work, and making sure that the future's bright. I think we're going to have a lot of work ahead of us. I think it's going to be a competitive race, but I expect in the final analysis, the people who voted for him and are disappointed are going to vote for me in the fall.
And what about Obama in his own words? It seems that the ads you've been running up to this point and the ads the RNC have been running up to this point have focused very heavily on his promises. Do you believe that this president has failed in his time in office?
Well, there's no question but that the liberal policies of the past, which he has put in place in this country, failed the American people. I mean, how else can you explain 3.5 years into his presidency, you have 24 million people out of work, stopped looking for work? As a matter of fact, the reduction in the unemployment rate is due entirely to the fact that a large number of people have dropped out of the workforce. Had those people not dropped out of the workforce, the unemployment rate would be up above 10%. This is a presidency that has failed to put in place the kinds of policies that would help the American people. The president says he wants to help. Look, I'm very concerned about middle-income families that are really struggling. I'm concerned about middle-income families who dropped into poverty. I mean, I meet from time to time with families that are really struggling. Just today I was with a family that they're having a very, very hard time. They're concerned about being able to meet their obligations. And husband's been out of work for over a year. The wife is working a job that's doing pretty well, but she's got student loans to pay back that she can't begin to make the payments on. Folks are having a hard time out there, and this president promised something very different than that, and his policies failed us.
All right, Governor, stay right there. We'll have more Governor. And welcome back to Hannity. We continue with former Massachusetts Governor, presidential candidate Mitt Romney. Governor, well, now you're in this position. I don't suspect that you're going to break news tonight and tell me who you are going to select as VP, so I won't ask you that question. But I will ask you, what are you going to be looking for in a running mate?
Well, I think the key criteria is whether an individual could potentially become the president of the United States and would be seen as having that capacity by the American people. you hope that who's ever elected, and it'll be me, I hope, it stays well throughout their term. But you always have to make sure that the person who's vice president, number 2 in line, is a person of capacity that could lead the country if necessary. So that's the most important criteria. But the process, you're right, the process is being led by my former chief of staff, Beth Myers. And she's carrying it out in a way that's, I think, professional and thorough. But as to the people that we might be considering, that's something we're not going to talk about.
All right. Do you have a short? Can I ask if you have a short list?
I've got nothing for you on the VP front.
Well, you're killing me. I'm trying to make news here, Governor. You're killing me. I'm teasing. All right, let me ask. The president said after we got bin Laden, he wasn't going to spike the football. Then they ran this ad questioning what you would do. What is your reaction to that, especially in light of the president opposed the very intelligence gathering methods, enhanced interrogation, rendition, black sites, Gitmo, that I would argue led to getting bin Laden?
Well, I don't begrudge the president his being able to describe his role in the process of getting Osama bin Laden. I congratulated him at the time, acknowledged the fact that he made the final order, and he deserves credit for that. Of course, we also credit the intelligence resources, as you describe, and the people who took the extraordinary risk, the members of SEAL Team 6. But if the president wants to remind people of his decision, why, that's entirely appropriate. But I think it was a big mistake for the president to try and make this a political event by suggesting that I would not have done the same thing. I mean, frankly, Sean, almost any American in the position of the presidency, hearing that Osama bin Laden could be taken out, would have certainly pressed that button and said, get rid of the guy.
Oh, absolutely. And you had said so.
Of course I would have.
And you had said so prior to that.
That was the right thing to do.
And they distorted your comments, which I did see. All right, let me ask you this. The president is also, we learned this week, is releasing high-value Taliban in Afghanistan and Gitmo, and he's been doing this for some period of time. We learned that the president, now has invited the Muslim Brotherhood to the White House. We're giving $1.5 billion to the Muslim Brotherhood. It seems their first act was to say that Israel is their main enemy, cut off energy resources to them. They seem to be preparing for war with Israel. We have 2 presidential candidates that support terror against the United States and Egypt. When you look at these 2 issues involving foreign policy, it does beg the question, what would you do different if you were the president?
Well, I think the president's foreign policy is generally characterized by an effort to try and make friends with some of the world's worst actors in some cases, to show good faith by providing things from the United States that hopefully will convince people that we're good guys. I think that's a mistake. I think the right course for our foreign policy is to communicate our strength, our determination, and to indicate that if people want to be friends with America, that they're going to have to hold to the principles that we find dear. I think, for instance, in Syria, which is one of the great opportunities for America and for the world right now to separate Syria from its connection with Iran, we should be leading in Syria. That doesn't mean being on the ground there necessarily, but it does mean helping lead an international effort to get rid of Assad and to return Syria to the people there. The president's efforts, I think, with regards to Egypt, suggest a lack of recognition of the very difficult and disturbing course that the nation appears to be taking. This Arab Spring has become an Arab winter under the president, and I don't see the kind of leadership and strength there that I think the American people expected when they saw Mubarak leave. I think they thought that America would do our very best to assure that democracy, or at least a freedom of some kind, would break out in major parts of the Middle East.
What do you think of what the Democrats are trying to create, which is this war on women? And they came up with this fictional Julia campaign. And also, your wife, Ann, has had to deal with the comments that she had never worked a day in her life. She was the First Lady of Massachusetts. She raised 5 boys. What is your reaction to this image that they're trying to create in this false war on women?
Well, the effort to describe Republicans as being anything other than extraordinarily pro-woman, pro-opportunity for women of America, pro-moms, pro-working moms, pro-working women. Look, that kind of effort is totally missing the mark, and people understand that. I think this little cartoon they have on the life of Julia really reveals the weakness of the president's policies. I think to have to defend your record by coming up with a cartoon character as opposed to real people suggests that he doesn't want to talk about his record at all. That the people of this country are really suffering in part because of his failed policies, and so he goes to a cartoon character. Look, this is a race about helping America do a better job caring for the people of America, creating great opportunities for people in the middle class, helping people come out of poverty. That's what it's all about. And to suggest that Republicans, or that I, don't care about any dimension of our society is simply misguided. It's wrong. It's dishonest. And I think as people watch this campaign, they'll recognize that the policies I'm promoting will help get America back to work and assure greater prosperity for our citizens.
Governor, we'll hopefully see you out there on the campaign trail. As always, first of all, congratulations on what was a hard-fought campaign, and we'll be seeing a lot of you hopefully in the next 6 months. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Sean. Good to be with you.
And come